Uh, hey, everybody, welcome back to Spearfactor. Today, we're with the Just Get Wet crew. Chris and Nate, you guys, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Just to start off, the whole Just Get Wet thing, what do you guys do? Can you just give everybody like a little background on what you guys are doing here in San Diego? As you're located in San Diego, Mission Beach, correct?
Yes. Yeah, that's correct. Feel free to add to this.
Okay.
I'm sure you make it better. But we started off with doing classes, for like the intro to freediving and intermediate freediving. As we were doing that, kind of realized how important it was to have like a consistent group that is training. And I think that is to me, that's the thing that I'm probably most proud about is we're out there every Sunday. If you want to come line dive, work on your depth, your performance, whatever, and then come hang out with us and cook out afterwards. I feel like that has been the coolest thing because, it can be a very intimidating sport. But when you meet the people that we hang out with, we're very much not intimidating, quite the opposite. So yeah, I would say classes, training, then we do a good amount of spearfishing trips and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I think it's like he hit it. We're a community that just kind of like gets people in the water to just kind of share love for the ocean and like how to like interact with it safely.
Exclusively, like you guys are just free diving, or are you doing spearfishing as well, like spearfishing stuff? Because it seems like if you look at your website, you guys are starting to kind of figure out as everybody gets into the free diving aspect. Some people like to go right, some people like to go left. You guys kind of experience that on your own as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think what I saw when I started this, and this was years ago, so I think it's changed a lot, but it seemed like some of the spearfishing groups were pretty salty. And not super welcoming. And so I wanted something that was just open to everybody, and especially girls. Like, I think it's sometimes tough for them to show up in a room full of like 80 dudes that just like want to shoot fish all day. And so that's what kind of started it. And I think I was more interested in the freediving specific part. But now that we have more people coming through the class, they want to do spearfishing stuff. So we're working on building that out. But yeah, getting there.
Yeah. I think I kind of found the two at the same time, and I think I've always done both equally. And the spearfishing has always been a big thing, and I've always really enjoyed teaching. And I mean, anything that I enjoy, I really like to pass that on to other people, no matter kind of what that is. And again, it was, I think, a tough journey for me when I first started to just find people to show me the way. I had to do a lot of like research and digging on my own. And I just want to like give people an easy access and not have to kind of like make the mistakes that I did, and just kind of, help people not make mistakes that I did, and like a quick, easy way to kind of get into it.
So along those lines, because I can identify with that as well. But how do you respond to, like, say, you're talking about the old salty guys, and it's like, I had to learn this way, and the learning curve was much flatter back then. What do you think about people like that? Like, that are kind of more along the lines of, you learn things for yourself rather than pay to take a freediving course or a spearfishing course, or you're giving all of our secrets away, or whatever it is, making people not earn. I guess, one way I guess could describe it is, and in the surfing community, it was like when tow surfing became really popular, and you had all these guys tow surfing, guys and girls too, everybody tow surfing, and you're like, that guy or girl would never be out here fucking paddling. if they weren't getting whipped into this wave. And the first thing that goes wrong, they're going to be fucked because they're not mentally prepared to deal with the repercussions of whatever it is they're doing. So in that regard, I see what kind of that argument, but how do you think about like when with some of the older guys are like, yeah, you should really learn it for yourself. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm totally that person. And I think, including with starting a business, I have to make all mistakes and learn them myself. I think the thing for me is just don't die.
Right.
And it's easy to do that if you have somebody with you, and if you know a couple things. And it's also very, very easy to get overly confident and have it sneak up on you when you're not expecting, because from what I have seen, the people that have gotten into trouble are usually people that know what they're doing. Everybody's surprised. Everybody says this person dives within their limits all the time. It was just this, something crazy happened one day. And I would say that is the reason to take it, is because you just kind of never know, and it can sneak up on you, and it's not worth it.
Yeah, that's always tough. Because I think there's a lot of people that feel like you need to like earn it. You need to put in the hard work and the time, and I do think you do. But that being said, I mean, I think I can relate it to surfing in that like it helps to have someone go out and say like, okay, this is what cutting somebody off is. Don't do that. This is what back paddling is. Don't do that. Like they don't need to like hold your hand and push you into a wave, but they can be there to kind of facilitate like, this is how it works. This is kind of the etiquette of it. And here's how to do it safely. And here you go. Like, enjoy.
Yeah, no, I can agree. I agree with that. I can totally see that, what you're saying. And I think people don't understand too, is that there's so many layers and levels of this whole thing. And you can hear things over and over again. Someone could say it to you, but until you really experience it, maybe multiple times, at least you'll know. But you won't really define that technique until, it takes a little bit of time. So yeah, the learning curve is steeper, but it's also much more, I don't want to say fair, for lack of better terms, just a gradual progression in doing things safely. Because I think, Chris, you hit it perfect, where it was like, just don't die. And then I feel like most of the people that are dying in our sport aren't the noobs.
Yeah.
Like it's not the new guys at all. Like it seems like it's the guys that are like, oh, I hear the term, he's an experienced diver, and oh, so-and-so died. Like the last two guys that I can think of that have died were diving 100 feet, 90 to 100 feet.
Yeah.
And this is where I guess the old salt kind of comes out, where I'm like, what the fuck are you doing diving to 90 to 100 feet by yourself? That's fucking stupid. And again, now I say that generalization, I'm not, but it's terrible because that is such a serious thing. And a lot of people that I think it's like a teenager when they get their driver's license, and I'm experiencing this right now, and they start driving and they're like, I got it, Dad. I got it. I got it. I'm like, you don't have shit. You don't know the first thing until something goes wrong. You think you got it,
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like with spearfishing, it gets like that, where guys are like, diving at like 90 feet. And I know another guy, a younger kid, he was doing that. And it's like, man, every 33 feet, everything gets more and more complicated. And it's like, we were doing some diving in Guam, freediving, and my buddy was doing like hangs at 100 feet. And one day he came up and had an LMC, and it was like the randomest thing. And I think it really rattled him because he didn't have an explanation why it happened, because he did everything, but it's like, that's that moment where if you're diving by yourself, spearfishing by yourself, you're done, and it's just done. So yeah. I think that's the frustrating thing. And it's kind of the argument that a lot of old timers do say too, as far as like, don't do freediving courses. You're giving someone enough rope to hang themselves, essentially. But so that was my response initially, was like, that's like, well, that's dumb, but so I understand where they're coming from, I guess, because I didn't take a freediving course for like 20 years. And then everything was
Yeah.
like word of mouth and passed down. It was like, okay, breathe this way. And then, come to find out, like, he was like, man, everything would have been a lot easier if I had taken a freediving course
Yeah.
years ago. But I think people just need to stress, if you have a buddy and they're watching you, if you fucking black out, like, what to do. It's not that big of a deal. I hate to say that, but it's really not. If you're on top of your shit, good to go.
Yeah.
But if you're not there, you're done. Like, how fucking wasteful is that? It's just shame.
Yeah.
I say it because I like get kind of fired up about it, because like there's so many good young people that do that. Oh man. And it's like, no, this is like going to 90 feet. Like, one of the guys I talked to said, 60-foot dive is like a pussy dive or something, and I was like, yeah, sure. It's cool.
Yeah.
90-foot dive might be a pussy. It doesn't matter, but chemistry is chemistry. And like, it'll fucking bite you in the ass
Yeah.
if you don't have a spotter just in case.
Yeah.
And I bring it up because I just want to reemphasize that to like people, that you're taking freediving course. So you're given this great tool to be able to dive comfortably. If you're going to do it, hell yeah, it's great. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to actually enjoy a dive. It took me 20 years to like actually enjoy a dive.
Yeah.
Before that, it was just like, get down there and find a fish and wait for the stupid thing to come in and shoot it. But that being said, right, is a lot of responsibility. So things can go bad. So like, I don't know. It's crazy to me. I feel like you as instructors, and I know you guys, like, I'm assuming like all the instructors I know, they push it, they force it. You're like, oh yeah, you got to spot buddy. And I'm just driving it home because I just feel like it happened again. And it's like, fuck, man. Like, guys, 90 feet is like a legit dive. Even if you can go to 180 feet, 90 feet is still a legit dive when you're talking about your body chemistry.
60 feet is a legit dive if you stay down there for 3 minutes. It's relative. Like, I mean, the depth is one thing, but like how long you stay down there, and when you're spearing is when you have all this other stimulus that's like distracting, and you forget. It's easy to forget. And in the end, it's just like anything you do in life, you weigh out the risks, right? And what risk do I have if I mess up while I'm free diving or spearfishing? It's your life, whereas other things, it might be something, a little less risky.
Yeah.
Right. So.
And that's the thing that we like preach all the time, is it's just like, if you take one thing from our class, it's just keep the other person's head out of water. That's it. You've saved a life. Like, that is all you have to do. It's so easy. And we try to teach you the right way to do it and the most efficient thing. But if you don't have that person there, you don't have a chance. And I think that is what is kind of frustrating, is it's just, so easy to save a life as long as you have somebody there. And
right.
The other thing with the line diving is, I think a lot of people think it's kind of lame, or just, aren't into it as much, but it is the chance where you can tell somebody, hey, I'm really going to push my limits, but I know that you're going to be there to safety me. And if anything happens, you've got me. And when you get to that edge, it feels different and it looks different for everybody. There's not like a cookie cutter, like, you're going to see this and you're going to feel this, and this is how you know. And so I think you do have to be in an environment where you can push that edge and find out what it looks and feels like for you, so that when you are out, spearfishing or doing whatever with a buddy, of course, you can see those things coming ahead of time. You're already familiar with them, and this isn't just some random thing. This is like my key to get back to the surface.
Yeah, that's a beautiful point though, as far as line diving, and you can push yourself, because really everything else you can deal with, right? You get squeezes, it sucks, you can deal with it so much, but if your head is not above the water, you're done. Like, everything else we can kind of deal with, but I did love line diving for the simple reason of that. It's what you're talking about, is like, okay, being really into spearfishing, it's like the line diving thing was new to me. And then it was like, okay, how if I was going to hunt at 70 feet, how would I do this? I know I can go to 70 feet, no problem. But I want to hunt there. I want to try to do a hang. So let me go to 70 feet, and then you just build yourself up. And I love the fact that you can kind of, in a very structured environment, rehearse that dive like what it would be like if you were hunting on a, you know, on a reef at 70 feet or 80 feet or whatever it was, but you can rehearse that for yourself, whatever depth you want. And like you said, when you're sitting there on 3 minutes on the bottom, but I know for me personally, it's like go down 65 feet, 70 feet. I can sit there for a minute on the bottom. Why? Because I've done it over and over. And I know like it's just it helps you relax too, because you've already rehearsed it and you're comfortable and like, yeah. No, good stuff. But now that we beat the safety horse to death, like, which I know, I just maybe I'm getting older. So I'm like, I've got to be safe, kids. But as far as running, how do you guys run? Okay, so Just Get Wet. You guys run freediving programs and spearfishing programs out of your store in Mission Beach.
Yeah.
What program, like PFI, what program do you guys follow? Do you guys follow exclusive program, or do you take a little bit from everything? And what kind of courses do you offer?
We teach the Molchanov's curriculum. I started, the first class I took was PFI. I got certified as a FII instructor under Martin's Panic, which is amazing and very difficult. And then there was another instructor out here that told me, like, you need to explore different things. There are a lot of different philosophies on freediving around the world. And so I did the Deep Week thing with Molchanov's. And was really impressed by that. It also lined up with, we're trying to do routine training and create a community, and that's kind of what they're behind. But I think for me, that's the best thing about the sport, is just it's so new and it's so individual that you can have an issue, you can talk to all these different people, they'll kind of give you the textbook answer, and then at some time you're gonna find one person that's like, yep, I've had that super weird thing happen to me. I did this really weird thing and it worked, and it just clicks. And I think that's what's kind of exciting about the sport right now, is there are guidelines for sure, but there's not a set formula. So that was one of the reasons that we started working with Molchanov's. And so we teach, we're starting to do a Discover freediving course, which is 20, 30 feet. It's basically advanced snorkeling. So there are no performance requirements. There are no certifications. Our intro course is between 40 to 66 feet. And then the intermediate is when you get into free fall. So 66 to 100 feet. And then we're combining spearfishing with that, and have a couple other things.
Yeah.
Spearfishing related up our sleeves.
Yeah. And then, we also do the advanced freediving. So from 30 to 40. So, and it was, I learned all through FII, and then kind of went to Molchanov's and got to kind of see the subtle differences between them. And freediving is still like so under researched, and people don't really know everything that there is to know about it. There's still so much to learn. And so that's kind of one of the things when I teach is kind of like, okay, here's what one agency teaches. Here's what another agency teaches. For the sake of the class, I want you to try this, but know that like maybe it's not perfect for you. Like everyone, for the most part, teaches the same thing, but with small, subtle differences and things like how to prepare for a breathe, how to like recover from your breathing and things. And so, it's like, okay, this is how we teach it. I want you to try this, but if this doesn't work for you, continue to try different things. Say, for instance, like FI kind of teaches like these, to prepare for a dive, it's kind of like a quick inhalation with these long kind of delayed exhalations, with the theory of like when you breathe in, your heart rate goes up. When you breathe out, your heart rate kind of goes down. So you're trying to kind of stair step your heart rate down. But I noticed one day sitting in my room trying to do statics, I had a heart rate watch monitor, and just by kind of like passively breathing, I was able to get my heart rate a lot lower than when I like really focused on my breathing. I wasn't able to kind of get that as low. So I kind of noticed once I got into Molchanov's, that's kind of how they teach it. And so, again, it's like, for the most part, it's all the same, but there's small, subtle differences. And you just kind of have to experiment and try different things to see kind of what works best for you.
And I don't think I knew this until we went through the instructor course with the kind of like the new batch this October, is Mulching Ops updates their manual like every 2 years, and they have people like in labs getting hooked up to equipment, researching it, like Alexi, like all they have like the top athletes in the world, and so they're hungry for this information, and they're immediately putting that into their manuals and their curriculum, which I haven't seen anywhere else. Which pretty unique.
Yeah, Nate, kind of like what you're saying, I noticed that as well, where I was like, as I'm prepping for this, of course, in your room, right? Like as I'm prepping for this breathing, I'm like, oh, my heart rate's going up to 88. But then when I started doing the tidal breathing, which I heard Adam Stern talk about that too, where I was almost like you just take a little bit of all this stuff and you put it together, and what works for you is what I found, where as long as you're not hyperventilating, the tidal breathing, I was telling somebody the other day, I just pretend like you're trying to go to sleep, and just like really like sleep, that'll lower your heart rate. And then, take a big breath and go, like, don't overthink it. I felt like when I was doing the traditional style of, 10 seconds out, big inhale, it was like I was getting ready like a football game or something. Like, here we go. And my heart rate's just going up, where when I was doing the tidal breathing, it was really just forcing me to like just chill out. So is that what you guys teach? Tidal breathing more style? That's kind of a style?
Yeah, it's basically just kind of tidal breathing all the way up to your peak inhale, and then from there it's just peak inhale. They do say for some people, like the urge to breathe is different for everybody. You can have like two identical humans who have, the same CO2 levels and O2 levels on a breath hold, and yet, this person on the left gets the urge to breathe right off the bat and it hurts, while this other guy has nothing and like doesn't even have contractions, although they are like physiologically the same. It's different, it's different for everybody. So we've had some people who just really struggle with that urge to breathe, in which case we say, okay, like if this is, if you're really getting this onset early on, to do like some slight chest breaths like before. So, 2 or 3 chest breaths, which is basically like, as opposed to a passive inhale, just slightly larger, right? Which is to off gas a little bit of CO2 to kind of delay that urge to breathe, but to do so in a safe way that's not like hyperventilating, that's going to run you the risk of something like a shallow water blackout.
Yeah. And I think to that point, it's like Adam Stern is an absolute legend, and I've worked with him and like watched his videos a million times. But he also said he's like, stretching is silly. Like, I don't think there's any reason for it. And I think it's just different body types. Like, I know if I don't stretch, I'm going to feel like absolute garbage. And so it's like, I just like different body type, this is what I have to do. Same thing with, taking a couple chest breaths. Some people are, if they do a couple of those, they put themselves at very extreme risk. For other people, they might be able to do a couple of those and not have any side effects. But again, that's why, we test that, especially in like the intermediate classes and at line diving. It's like, find your edge when there's somebody there with you before you go out and do in the wild.
Yeah.
Right. That's a good point. And yeah, it kind of reinforces what you said earlier, but it's totally true. I noticed like, I call them depth triggers, where it's like, I'm like, what are you talking? Like, calm down. Like, I've talked so much shit to myself. You're at 40 feet, man. Like, this is embarrassing. And what I realized too, a lot of it is I hadn't been stretching at all. And if I don't stretch, man, like, it's just, I don't know. It's either I didn't stay long enough on the surface, probably to off gas the CO2 from the last dive or whatever it is, or calm the fuck down. I don't know, for some reason, like, or for me, it's just the diaphragm stretchers, like the biggest game. Like, I had a friend just text me last night from Kauai. He's like, dude, the diaphragm stretchers, thank you so much. Because we were just in Baja, and then he left to go to Kauai to dive, and he was diving to 60 feet. He's been diving a few years, but that's a pretty good depth for him. And he was like, dude, totally changed everything. But yeah, like Adam Stern saying that, I'm like, I got to stretch, man. I just did too much. I don't know. My body's different. Like you said, it is interesting. freediving too, because you could talk to so many different doctors and they'll tell you all different things too. Like it's not even worth your time. And it sounds terrible. Like if you can find a doctor that freedives, it's like, yes, sweet. I have a couple of those, but yeah, there's all kinds of information out there all across. Like when I was getting my trachea squeezes all the time, I was like, I don't understand. Like I never had this before, and it's just this and that. And then now all of a sudden it just keeps coming, and and it took like talk to Ryan Myers, the 200-foot diver or whatever. He's like, yeah, he was really helpful. But at the same time, you look at someone like that and you're like, he probably never had that issue. Maybe he did, he just deeper. But I'm talking about getting like a friggin' squeeze at 50 feet. Like what's going on?
Yeah.
And some of the principles apply across the board, but it was just interesting to Google and see all the different, like some of these little like nuances that you have when you dive. Like 1 out of 1,000 people will have the same thing, and you can find that guy and you're like, oh my God, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it right there.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I just drank water before I dove. That fixed it. And you do that and it fixes it. It's like the stupidest shit sometimes. Like,
Yeah, it is. It is.
it's so cool because like you said, I feel like the case studies are like getting more and more. The more people are diving, you're seeing more of things happen like that. And then more people can kind of identify with it.
Squeezes especially are just a wild thing. I've had a lot of issues with those myself. And you hear podcasts about some people saying you should never, ever, ever, ever see that. And then the kind of doctrine was if you have some sort of squeeze, take like a month off and then go back to diving at like half the depth and then slowly ease your way into it. And now some like the new doctrine that they might be coming out with is, yeah, squeezes happen. It's kind of like when you lift weights, you're tearing muscles and they repair themselves. And it's similar with your lungs. So I don't know what's right or wrong. I know that I don't like seeing blood. But yeah, it's just, I think the point is nobody really knows right now. And I think that the litmus test is how you feel on your dive. If something feels right, go for it. If something feels wrong, don't do it. And it's like a very like explorative kind of time in the sport, which I think is rare.
Right. The funniest thing about the squeeze is I remember reading, and I'm sure you read the same thing, where it's like if 20% of your blood is in your saliva, stay out for 2 weeks. And then like just goes down. If more, stay out. I was like, that doesn't sound very scientific. But
like, oh, that was 22%. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember diving, like getting squeezed. I mean, this is terrible to say this, but like getting squeezed so often where it was like, one time I was like, well, fuck it. I went and dove the next day and I was fine. But then the next, it's just the weirdest. I guess it's just about how bad the squeeze is, where you get squeezed. Like all of my stuff was trachea for the most part, but pretty crazy. As far as your spearfishing, I'm super interested in this. Your guys' spearfishing course that you're offering. How did you guys, what curriculum do you guys use, and how did you go about doing that whole thing? Like, can you kind of walk me through that course for someone that might be interested in getting involved in that?
Yeah. So we've been doing kind of a combo course where the Friday and Saturday, for the intro classes, it's the same thing. Friday night classroom, Saturday morning pool, Saturday afternoon, a little shallow water session. And then for those classes, we like to take a bigger boat, like Captain Bligh, Lineage Charters have been great. And then take people out to the Coronado Islands on Sunday. We do a little bit of a depth session. Sometimes people are feeling it and really want to push depth. Sometimes it's, you feel a little bit exposed. So we can basically call it a warm-up session, and then we just go start hunting. And that's what I think is really cool, is just watching people's comfort in the water improve throughout the day. The Coronados are great for that, because if you want to dive in 10 feet, you go over here. If you want to dive in 40 feet, you swim 10 feet this way and you're in 40 feet, and it's usually pretty clear water. So yeah, we try to on the boat ride out. We'll give a lot of instruction on spearfishing etiquette, how to load the gun, spearfishing safety, what you're looking for, hunting techniques, and then we'll be diving with you and kind of giving you pointers throughout the day.
Yeah, normally you kind of jump in the water, kind of have like 2 people or so kind of per person, and then it normally starts with kicking around and just being like, okay, that's a big goldfish, don't shoot that thing. Okay, all right, there's a fish here. It's like, okay, these fish, there's no size limit, there's anything, they're open game, but obviously it's, you know, like, don't take anything unless you plan on eating that thing. Right? Spearfishing is we get to be selective and kind of get to pick and choose what we want, and yeah, we're not really out there to just shoot stuff. Is, you know, there to kind of like catch your food, you know. So yeah, it's pretty fun, and it's surprising how a lot of people can get psyched out on the line when it's just this endless blue, you know, but when the bottom's right there beneath you, and there's fish and there's things and you can see it all, it's just like so much more accommodating and not intimidating. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I found too, going to like marine reserves and taking people snorkeling through there and pointing out, okay, you're going to see this fish. You'll never see a fish this big before. Like this
Yeah,
calico,
right.
that ain't going to happen. You won't. Yeah, if you see a calico this size, yeah, go ahead. You know, so it's interesting though, because I mean, I knew when I went to travel to new places and get with a local guy or whatever it is and go and try to like then like go back and research what the fish is and all this stuff like that. It's super cool. And yeah, you got to know what you're hunting for before you just go out there. Like the guys I was telling you with that I went this weekend, they're like, what do I shoot? Well, those are opali. And it's like pretty good size opali. You know what? If you never shot one, shoot it and take it home and eat it and see how you like it, you know?
Yeah.
Because people just don't know. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool too, because Bly jumps in the water too with the guys, and I always tell people, like, I can sit here I can sit here and like explain to you like how to do a duck dive and like how to do this and that, but you know, especially from my own experience, like I learned everything from just watching. You know, if you can see somebody do it and you watch somebody do something, it's so much easier to then do it. So I'm just like, stay with that guy, watch everything that he does and try to do what he does, you know? And I think that's like one of the best advice I can give to anybody that wants to learn is to watch, you know, visualization. Like the brain doesn't know the difference between like imagining something and actually doing something. So that's one of the things I always encourage to people when they come into classes is like, if you've never watched freediving before, look at it, watch it. Like if you have an idea of what things look like, your body can just kind of imitate it and do it. But if it's like completely new, then you're just going to kind of wing it. And most often it's not going to be exactly what it's supposed to be.
I've even done that too, sitting in my bed and like walk myself through a dive, like, okay, 10 meters, 40, whatever it is. And just like clearing just to like psychologically look at the time and try to walk myself through it just to you get over a hump. If I was having a hump at something, you know.
No, this, you can probably delete this out of here because I think Nathan said the same thing. But like when I went to that deep week in Bali, I was hitting a wall at like 100 feet. And I had just gotten the Garmin watch, so I had the heart rate monitor, and I was like, okay, like I'm gonna do like short inhales, long exhales. And I had this instructor with me that was just this bombshell, like Swedish special forces, like absolutely gorgeous. And I did terrible dives, and I looked at my heart rate monitor after, and it was just like right before every dive, boom, through the roof.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear a thing you said. What? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Now dive. What? Okay, sure. Yeah.
So it's
I love you.
Yeah.
Did we just have a connection?
Yeah. Okay. I will drown myself for you. But yeah.
If I black out, you all right.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Now you're gonna have a record number of people sign up for the deep week or blue water. Yeah, the Blue
Yeah,
Water Expo, whatever it is,
I'll
right?
put our social stuff in here and
Yeah. Well, let's get into that a little bit. Your social, you guys quite the social gathering crew. It seems like your little network of people. There's just growing and growing. Um, it seems like the free diving is like a byproduct of just I don't know, like everything else. Like it seems like you got a hell of a community you guys are building down there. How did you, is these all the people that you've met through instructing, or did you guys know each other before? Like Chris, I know you were in the Navy, you were an officer in the Navy, right? And then you got out. And then Nate, you had messaged me a while before about just getting into photography and some other stuff. How how did the whole thing happen? I guess everybody's individual journey, but how the hell did this whole thing happen? Because it seemed like it started with, and we'll get into this too, also your Dive Viz app
yeah.
and that whole thing. But how did the whole thing happen? Because it's pretty big now. Like I was impressed when I looked down the beach. I was like, wow, these guys are like, because I think I was down, like I say, with my daughter, and I looked over and you guys, like, there was a big group of people, and then I was looking on Instagram, and it's like it's not just you two on there running around, it's everybody. It seems like a pretty cool community.
Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest things for me is I frequently question myself and what the heck am I doing? But and I probably always will be, but just looking around at the people that we have working with us and showing up, it's like, I don't know what we stumbled into, but we did something right. And so that's the most exciting thing for me. The way that it started was yeah, through the app. I was trying to do like dive forecasts, and somebody I was working with was like, well, if your whole mission is to get people into the water, which it is, I think the more people that see what's actually happening under the water, the more people that see that fish are getting smaller and fewer and further between. That's what I want, is just to like open them up to that experience. And if they want to take it and run with it and they want to do something with it, awesome. But I just want to be that, like, the doorway. And so my friend was like, well, you should just start a meetup group. I was like, absolutely not. I do not want to do that at all. She was like, no, you absolutely should. So I caved. And our first meetup was terrible. We met at La Jolla Shores. I had never driven to La Jolla Shores on a Friday in June, and I thought that I could just go there and be fine. But turns out there's a lot of traffic. You can't park anywhere. And so I was late to my first event. We had like 15 people show up, and it was pretty choppy that day too. And so I had surfed, I had dove, and I was like, all right, we're just going to get our gear. We're going to go out here. Didn't give people any pointers on like how to get into the water. So people are losing fins, masks, their children crying. It was just like the whole thing went up in flames. But we ended up going out there and snorkeling and came back. And afterwards, we all regrouped and like had a beer. And everybody was so excited. And I was like, okay, everybody just wants the beer. Like, as long as you get in the water, you have a beer afterwards, we're good. And yeah, from there, it just kind of grew. And then people started asking a lot of questions about freediving. I was like, man, I haven't taken a class in like 10 years. I should probably know what I'm doing. And so Martin was in town, and I signed up for his class, got my butt kicked. And then, yeah, just started teaching it as kind of a side gig. And yeah, as I was teaching, I saw like how cool it was to have, like, I love our Sunday things at La Jolla Shores, where you have people that are taking the class. You have people that might be interested in freediving but are intimidated, so they'll come for a hot dog and maybe go snorkel, but they get to talk to the people in the class. And it I don't know, it just makes it less, intimidating, or it makes it more accessible. And then that went on for a little while. Then in 2020, COVID happened, and it just like blew up. I think people were looking for anything to do. I got really burnt out. So I hassled Nathan, and he helped me start teaching classes. And yeah, just kind of grew from there. I think, yeah, we've managed to find an awesome band of misfits that hang out and dive with us. So it's always, yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's cool because there is no like freediver type. We have people of all ages, of all walks of life, from just every kind of person and personality that you can imagine. And I think none of these people would normally ever be in the same room or talk to each other, and we all come together and we all kind of share this common bond, and we are all just as tight as glue. It's like it's funny how I don't know, I think the ocean and diving can just kind of just create this common bond between people and bring people together. And I mean, there's something to say about the post dive high, when you get to just like your body goes through this crazy dive adaptation, and then you come back up and you just feel in a way that you've never felt. And when you get to like come back up and share that with people, it's like I knew from the first moment I hit neutral buoyancy that I would never be the same ever again. And that's kind of how I found Chris. Was I was working on a project in Hawaii, and I had a day off, and somebody basically taught me how to equalize and ran me kind of through a crash course on free diving. And I did some diving and then was just hooked, and came back to San Diego, bought all my gear, quickly realized that San Diego is not Hawaii, and kind of started this uphill battle of kind of learning how to dive out here and deal with the conditions. And so I was spearing and stuff, but I never really got to like get that feeling that I got on a line to pursue depth. And so I just started looking all over online of like, who does line diving? Nobody does. And then I found Chris, and was just like, hey, I'm going to take a class, and I think that was one funny thing, is that like I had already hit like 100 feet before I ever took a class. And he's like, all right, you got to take this first class, and it caps off at like 20 meters at 66 feet. And I was kind of like frustrated at that at first. It's like, I can already like do 100 feet. Like, why the heck do I need to take this class? But I knew that I basically needed to take the class for insurance reasons to like come out and dive on the line. So I was like, okay, that's what I got to do. But I roped in a bunch of my friends that I had been trying to like come dive with me. So I brought a couple friends in, and that was like one of the greatest takeaways from the class, was like the safety that I learned, and to know that like these people that I dive with on a regular basis, like they've got my back to basically do anything, like to do what's right in case something goes wrong. And the amount of comfort that brought me was huge. I mean, you can be a world-class diver and you can do all the safety right, but if your buddy doesn't know it, it really doesn't do anything for you, So I took away so much from that class, of just like having the comfort of knowing that, all right, this is my buddy and he's got my back.
So here's one thing you mentioned, buddy, and we're talking about somebody always watching your back, but obviously California is not Hawaii. And do you have any tips or recommendations, or have you found anything that works better than others when you're diving and it's, poor visibility or it's hard, just in general, when the guy drops, as soon as he goes past, 20 feet or whatever, he just disappears? Do you guys have any tips for something like that?
I think you probably got more. I'll say I would say having a float line helps a lot. Also, just knowing what their capabilities are. Like, what's their normal bottom time? Like, are they going to be diving for a minute and a half, or like this guy, like 6 minutes? People come out and train with us and they're like, is he dead? I'm like, no, it's just Nathan. But just knowing that and having that like knowledge of each other and each other's capabilities and what you're normally doing. And then I would say, if you can get yourself, whether it's through a class or line diving or pool training with a buddy or with us or whatever, like to that point where you're on your edge, that adds a ton of value. So I think, one, your buddy knowing what you're typically capable of, and then you being underwater and knowing, Wow. Usually I can stay down here for 2 minutes, but I've been down here for 45 seconds and I'm already feeling this thing that is usually my warning signal. Maybe something's off. Maybe I didn't get enough sleep last night. Maybe I'm not hydrated, whatever it is, just like, yeah, having that knowledge on both sides. I don't think there's I don't know if there's a perfect answer.
I think we all have friends like Nathan here that it's like, like, 3.5. Did he just black out sitting in the prone, or like, we had a friend like that. And I was like, it was so, like, I remember sitting down and tapping like, hey, and he turned around and he was like, yeah, what's the problem? I'm like, hey, all right, dude.
Just checking.
Wow. Like literally pushing 4 minutes, man. Like, holy crap. And he's like, hey, how come I couldn't go down any deeper? I was like, that was 100-foot float line. He was pinned out. That's why you couldn't go down deeper. Oh, I had no idea. Well, like, fuck you, man. Because that ain't me, dude.
Yeah, no, I think like your waiting is a big thing. I mean, like in safety, it's really just like, all right, just make sure you weight yourself properly and make sure you got somebody that's watching your back. I mean, that's the big thing. Like Chris said, float line will always kind of give you that, like, if something does go wrong, you're most likely going to be next to that. So that gives you kind of that path to it. And to just to know that, yeah, you can hunt and not like you can buddy dive and hunt fish and do it successfully. I remember like the first time I went out like white sea bass hunting with some friends, I jumped in the water. They're like, don't get near me. You stay away from me and don't scare my fish. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, yes, sir. And I was like, okay, so this is how I do this, and then, yeah, like took some classes and realized that's kind of sketchy. And then, I've got some of my good buddies I love to dive with, like Nate Wells and Brandon Zeke, and it's totally like our hunting has like proved that 100% wrong. And that like the reason I've landed fish is because we were buddy diving and communicating after each dive and like saying like, all right, what'd you see? I'm seeing this, like top surface nose, like actually you should try the bottom. Oh, okay. I haven't been diving to the bottom. Let's try that. And then like I connect. So yeah, I think like it's people that say like trying to buddy dive and spearfish like is going to decrease your odds of catching fish. I would 100% say that's false.
Yeah. I think it's interesting going back to what you were saying as far as having a diving with a buddy, and you're absolutely right. I have found my last podcast, we talked about it. We just got back from a trip with a guy on the podcast, Peter, and we did there was 3 of us, and it was like one guy goes down and I noticed this, goes down, check out this rock. I noticed this, whatever. And like, we were just constantly like just probing, like leapfrogging all the way down to the area until we could find the area. But we were able to go so much faster just because somebody was always ready. Somebody was recovering, somebody was spotting, and we just able to find like way more productive fishing spots. I think that way, especially when the viz wasn't so great. We were doing, just dives down. We actually had to stay on the bottom a little bit. I thought that was probably the most productive way to hunt, at least, a grouper or whatever. But even for white sea bass, like you're saying, I'm seeing this. Are you seeing that? Like any fish. Mm-hmm. I've heard that from numerous people. Even in blue water, we always found out that it was like 3 people was like perfect, because somebody be on the flasher with a smaller gun, and then you got 2 guys, diving, and then somebody's spotting the guy that's diving. They're taking turns diving, and you're just kind of watching sharks or whatever it was. Yeah. What do you guys have planned for this year coming up? Like any big things? I mean, you guys are doing trips to Mexico, and so those ridiculous photos that you take of diving, those I guess they're springs, right? Is that correct? Those freshwater.
Yeah, basically a cenote. Yeah, it's just kind of like these freshwater pockets in Mexico. So yeah, we're gonna go back to Mexico in the fall in October and kind of do our traditional cenote trip, which is awesome just because it's just kind of like the perfect storm for free diving. They're protected. There's no current. They're not exposed. The water's crystal clear. You do have like holoclines, at about 100 feet, you hit this holocline where it goes from freshwater to saltwater. And it's pretty trippy because, normally at that point you're in free fall. So you're just cruising and then you bust through this cloud, and then you enter, it gets really dark down there. But it's wild because you can feel yourself transition from freshwater to saltwater. You can feel yourself slow down. So normally you have to like give a couple more kicks to kind of speed back up into the saltwater.
And so personally, I hate that because you usually hit that at about 100 feet, which is where I start tensing up. And then knowing that I have to kick more at that depth, I don't like. What I do like is that each cenote like has its own personality. It's not like, hey, come like 2,000 miles away with us and we're gonna dive in a bunch of freaking ponds. Like they are all so different, and they all have their own personality and their own like haloclines or soloclines or like whatever. Like it's really, really cool and very nice for us because there are no waves. It's all warm. You know, you'd pretty much just like fall into the water and start diving.
Yeah, it's freshwater. So normally we're wearing 5 mil suits when we're down there because it's freshwater, so it's a little bit cooler. But it's like you're super warm in a 5 mil, and then you don't wear as much weight because it's freshwater. So you have half the amount of weight you normally wear, and it's wild. As soon as you put that on and you're back in your suit, you realize like how obnoxious your weight belt is, and like having all that extra weight. And like he said, like it's like a very spiritual place, and like each one is so individual, you know, like each one is so different from the other, and each one's a different experience. So and everybody that goes down there always does their best diving. Like everyone's just hitting PBs, and I think the problem is everyone gets used to that, and then they come back here and they get in the cold and they're like, oh, okay, what the heck, you know? And it helps us get that perspective of like why people struggle out here, and how much cold water tenses up the body, and how much tension like you don't realize that you're holding, and how much that's holding you back, whether it's like equalization, simply just because you're a little tight, like you can't equalize, or just because you're a little tight, you're not able to bring air up or do this or that, and like you're getting this urge to breathe, like you don't realize it. So I think it helps gain perspective of like what comfort feels like on a dive out there, and then here, like
it really is. If you can do it here, you can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
But I would say down there, if you drink enough beer, you can have a 3 mil and be plenty warm.
So that leads me to a question as far as hydration and drinking beer. No, in all seriousness, drinking beer and free diving, do you notice a big difference, or do you prefer to drink the beer after you free dive? Or is there like, have you noticed much of a difference? Like if you were out all night partying and then you're going, obviously you're dehydrated, but have you noticed much of a difference? Like I get hammered off like a beer nowadays.
I think I'm a great test subject for this. I'll let you go first.
I think I have a great perspective because I feel like my whole life I've been able to like smoke a doobie, go drink a couple beers, go out and surf, and have no problem performing, and like do athletic activities and just be able to hang. Free diving is the first thing that really like put it in perspective for me, where I will drink like one beer the night before and I go dive the next day, and I can feel that one beer like on my dive. I can't feel it, let's say, like physically as I wake up, and the next day it's like I'm not hungover. I have no clue that like was with me, but on my dive I feel it, like I 100%.
But I also think that you're so comfortable with diving and so in tune with it that you know if any little thing is off. I know that I've seen other people that are maybe not as experienced and can have like, again, it's a fine line. You can have like 1 or 2 drinks and it kind of like calms their mind down,
relaxes them.
You're able to relax more. I think diving hungover, would never recommend that to anybody. But I don't know. And in general, like probably wouldn't recommend it. But I think for like beginners, it's like, if you have like a mimosa or 2 and you go dive, like it's not going to kill you. But
I think on paper, like it's not going to help you, right? But we always say free diving is 90% mental and the other 10% is in your head. And I couldn't agree with that more. And I've heard these stories of people who are like, I had a couple beers and I went out and dove and I like killed it. And I think that all boils down to relaxation. Like relaxation in the end will overcome all technique and everything else. Like your comfort and your relaxation is at the base of your pyramid of how to like perform a successful dive. Mm-hmm. And so I think those people who might like drink a little bit and then have like good benefits is from that is because it helped them relax. And like, that's what they need to work on.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. That's a fair assessment, I think. So it works good on podcasts too.
Another fun thing I want to talk about as far as like trips we're doing is we're doing a Sea of Cortez liveaboard. So I've been kind of trying to like put together some fun Baja trips because in the last 3 years I spent a lot of time down there, and it is like I'm ready to go down there and never come back. It's just it's such a beautiful place, and I mean for me it's just like the older I get, the farther I want to get from concrete and buildings, and I just want to like escape to a different time and place where there are no people and it's just like me and nature. And Baja is like for me transporting back in time. And so we're doing a liveaboard down coming into La Ventana, and then gonna basically dip out there, hit Cerralvo, and then kind of go up north for like 6-7 days, just bouncing around between some blue water, some deep water pinnacles, and some obviously like reef diving and whatnot. So I love that place. I love that area, that style of diving, and pretty excited about that.
When is that?
It's gonna be in May for about 8-9 days. And we got it all up on the site right now. You can kind of see the boat, see kind of like a breakdown day by day of where we're going to be diving. Obviously, we kind of have a general idea of what it's going to be, but that's the beauty of a liveaboard is, we don't have to keep coming back to shore each night. You can kind of stay out on the grounds, find the fish. If we plan to be here today and there's no fish, you just pick up and move, until you find where it's at and then stay there. And so, yeah.
Well, we got it for the May 19th to the 27th.
Yeah.
Oh, great. That sucks for me, but
oh, no.
Shit.
We'll do another one, Brett.
Yeah.
Are you doing it through Palapas Fontana, or is it something totally separate?
Yeah, doing it with Tim. I went down and did the Palapa, the Blue Water comp last year. It was kind of like my first comp, and just like had a ball on that, and like, just had a real good time, and then kind of saw what it was like diving there. And then the more I dive Baja, the more I basically look at like where the most remote spots are. When you go down the road, you see how the road goes from like the Pacific to the Sea of Cortez, and it's just like my ideal thing is just be wherever that road isn't, and like this kind of area where we're going to be at is like pretty remote. So I just
I do the exact same thing. I was like, okay, we're taking a boat here. That's what we're doing. Like, I have my buddy has this little inflatable. I'm like, I don't give a shit. And I've said this before, like it's just the craziest thing about Baja is you look at the amount of coastline there is. It's basically double California with 3,000 people or I think it's 4,000 people, 3,000 people live on the border. Mm-hmm. Like there's gotta be reefs there. I love exploring anyways. It's always been in my kind of thing, but there's gotta be reefs you dive on that no one's ever dove on it.
Yeah.
There's a very good chance of that. Like, and I'm not saying I want to go, like, it would just be incredible to dive, to explore. Like it's, the ocean is the ocean. It's so cool. And it's not that far away, literally. And back to what you're saying, as far as getting away from the concrete jungle, the thing that I love about down there is the people too, the culture, the handshake. Like there's no attorneys, there's no bullshit. Like there's no, you'll sign this so you don't sue us. Nobody gives a shit. We'll give you enough rope to hang yourself. Like if you want to fucking do that, go for it. But the thing I love about it is like really the values, like the professionalism. It is very professional. It's very like everybody gives you the shirt off your back, and just such a good time. That what is your website? Is it justgetwet.com?
Yep.
Okay. That trip sounds amazing.
Ah,
But yeah, absolutely. That, I mean, you see it, look at the map, anywhere the 1 or the 5 goes, just go the other way. We're
yeah.
good. Yeah. It's got to, like, that's why I think there's a lot of parts of Baja that require hours and hours of driving. And I'm not going to give anything away, but like, you can't necessarily fly into it. There's parts that you can, but it's still, once you get there, it's a 3-hour, 4-hour drive. Like, those are the places I want to go. Like,
Yeah.
those are the places I know you can dive and shoot a 40-pound yellowtail easily, Um, but I will say that I just talked to someone today that talked about a spot that we dive pretty regularly, and or that he had, and I've been there a few times, and a couple of my friends, and one of the guys that mentored me is like, there's schools of 40-pounders, and that was in the 90s. Now there's more like, there's 40-pounders, there's sprinkled throughout, and there's bigger fish, but the schools, the walls of 40-pounders, I mean, I haven't seen it, but he was talking about even just him diving it in the early 90s till now, how it's got to kind of water down a little bit, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
So again, be selective. But yeah, that's cool. Baja. Okay. And then who's all your instructors, or as far as like, what's your staff look like as far as your crew? Because I saw Derek. I've messaged him. I think he lives in Ocean Beach or something, but yeah. And I've been meaning, I know he goes to go to the Spear Shack a lot with Mark, but I've never actually got a chance to link up with him, and I've chatted with him so much, but I know he kind of took it and ran too. As far as, is he an instructor now with you guys, or?
Yeah, he assists with us a lot. He's helped us run a ton of classes and a ton of training, and a lot of these like spearfishing shore tours, and some of the trips to the Coronados as well. But yeah, he's put a lot of time into it, working with Mark, and I think he's linking up with Captain Bly, his safety diver for the next year. So yeah, some people love the line diving, and Derek killed it at that. I think now he's excited to be out on boats and help people.
Yeah, Derek's kind of been my Baja Huckleberry. We did a trip in November, and it's kind of fun because we had a general idea, and we went down there, and it was kind of like the first spot we hit and planned on staying. It was like, water's too cold, we're not seeing anything. It's like, okay. And then we just went off and just completely wung it and had like a great trip. So, he's been kind of like definitely on the spearfishing front and trying to kind of like find spots that we can kind of like take people, and like what's like a good beginner spot to take some beginner divers, some more advanced spots. And he found it just like he found a spearfishing like Groupon and went and did it. And then it was just basically what I like to say, down the rabbit hole, which I feel like we all kind of have this one experience where you just get hooked, and then like you just kind of pursue it, and has been just kind of with us since then. So
yeah. And I think for the rest of the staff, like what I love is that everybody has such different backgrounds, and a lot of them pretty much all of them are doing it part-time. But
they were all people that took the class, like all people that basically sought us out, took the class, and just came and never left, and I feel like it's the same as me.
And for me, what I look for and what I've seen in them is just their ability to like read people and meet them on their level. I think that's a skill in and of its own, and then being able to do that in the water, and being able to do that with multiple people that are on multiple different skill levels can be really challenging. And so
that's huge for coaching. Yeah, that's huge. Like, it's not a one-stop shop. It's definitely trying to get the most. Everyone's like a little puzzle and trying to figure out what helps them.
Like, give them the next step, the next piece. Like,
right.
Yeah, it's one thing to like be able to perform a skill. It's another thing to be able to like communicate it in a way to all sorts of different people, And so, the the people that have come on are awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so great having more people on our staff. Like we had a class this past weekend that had just a very wide range of abilities. And when I started, it was like I would try to handle all of them and it would be miserable. Like nobody's gonna be happy. But now we have, a lot more people where, the rock stars can go with one person, the people that are kind of getting it can go with somebody else, and then the struggle bus can be handled by usually me. But it's just really cool to like, give everybody that next step, and then have people that can, read that and so it's been really nice to have a bigger staff that's way more capable than I am.
One thing I wanted to ask you, just more personally, I guess, is that Nathan, you're a fairly deep diver, I'm assuming. I've never dove with you, but I do know, I think I might have talked to you about this before sometime, but what depths do you feel comfortable freediving to?
Yeah, it's a tough question because like I didn't have many hangups at first, like with equalization and whatnot. I think I kind of raced down to like 100 feet pretty quickly, but then it was that point when I hit residual volume when I realized like, oh, I can't move air anymore. What's going on, right? So I think that took me a bit to kind of like figure that out. And then I progressed to like 40 meters. And then I think it was when I started hitting 40 that I had a couple like pretty mild squeezes, but it was very confusing to me because the dives felt great. I felt like my technique was perfect. And I got out of the water and just like spit to check. And I had some like very small specks of blood in there. And it completely puzzled me as to like, all right, what the heck is going on here? Where did this come from? And so it was at that point that I feel like I took a big step backwards in my diving, was like, all right, something's going on here. I don't know what it is. Like, I need to kind of figure that out. And I kind of just really tried to, again, just like work on technique, work on form, and to kind of overcome that. And then I think it was about that time that I started instructing. And so most of my diving now is kind of working with other people, and I don't get to do as much of my own pursuit of depth. And so I always want to make sure that if I am going to push depth, that I take time to make sure that my body is like adapted to it. It's not like, I do a lot of diving, so my breath hold is great, and like my muscular endurance is great, but it's like I'm just mainly diving to like 20, 30 meters constantly, and I don't go past that too much. So, I always like to wait until I have like a week or two that I can, spend some time getting down 40 and moving past that. My deepest dive yet is about like 56 meters. And it felt great. I still feel like it was when I kind of had that hang up, and I had like a very uncomfortable dive at like one of the first times I hit 40. When I came up, I feel like starved for air. And I was just like, I never want to have that feeling ever again. Like, I don't want to ever have an uncomfortable dive again. And I think it was that point, like I just got into such a rhythm of every time I go out, I hit a PB, I go deeper. And it was at that point I took a step back and I stopped focusing on numbers. It was like, okay, my goal is to enjoy my diving. And ever since I did that, like the depth came no problem. And I think that's the biggest advice that I can give to anybody. And then I tell to everybody in a class, it's like, okay, I bet all of you are concerned about what the requirements are to pass this class. And I was just like, don't even think about it. Like, after you take this class, you have like a whole year to try to check these things off. So just like, don't feel like you need to do it in the class. If you could just go out and try to enjoy your diving, the depth will come. But it's as soon as you try to take your mind somewhere else than you are, as soon as like, you just need to stay in the moment and stay where you're at. And as soon as your head is.
So how does that, so you're comfortable diving at 40 meters, you could say, right? How does that transition to your spearfishing? Like, what depth are you comfortable at diving when you're spearfishing? Because like, that's such a weird thing, as I feel like as divers, we're trying to get that to be equal as much as we possibly can. Just like when we do statics, we're trying to breathe our dynamics as close as we can to our static, just by being efficient and calm. Like, and so I'm just curious, like for you, what kind of depth do you feel comfortable diving in?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because like my free diving, I approach so differently than my spearfishing. You know, with my free diving, I like do a nice, pretty big, powerful duck dive. And when I start kicking, my kicking is pretty powerful. And I try to kind of maintain a specific speed that's like maximizing efficiency. Whereas when I'm spearfishing, I slow everything down. Like I try to do my duck dive and I kick in a way that is not aggressive. You know, it's like the fish are always watching you. So you just always have to think that. And so my dive is very different. Like my dive is so much more slower and I go into free fall so much earlier. And so normally it equates in a much, much longer dive time. So it looks very different. And it also depends on like how well I'm training, you know, like if I'm not training and I haven't been diving a lot, I'm going to dive completely different than if I'm at peak performance. You know, I think when I was at the Blue Water Comp, I was like feeling pretty good. And so that was the first time that I started like maxing out my float line at like 100 feet. And, you know, dive times kind of going up into like 2 towards the 3-minute range and stuff. And so that was, but again, it's like getting into free fall at like 30, 40, 50 feet and then just slow-mo sinking down to like 100 feet or so. So I feel comfortable getting down to 100, but again, it's very situational of like how I feel at that time, like how much I've been training.
Yeah, that's kind of a good point. What you're talking about is slowing everything down. Because I was diving a few weeks ago with a couple of guys that they're newer divers, but they'd taken the freediving course, and I was watching them diving, and he'd go down and he literally just kicks so hard, just like he's diving down a line, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, whoa, like, but it kind of caught me off guard. I was like, hey, I'm not like a great diver or anything, but maybe you should slow down a little bit. And until you mentioned that, it made me think that, yeah, if someone just took a freediving course, that's how I get to the bottom. But
Mm-hmm.
you got to get down there and stay there. You want to be like, it's just a totally different animal in some regards. So yeah, you're right. Everything slows down. That's interesting. Yeah. Cause I think especially in the beginning, everybody's so anxious and nervous. They just want to get to the bottom. And it's like, oh, I got to scream down there, get down, they'll touch the bottom of that line and come back up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, diving, spearfishing, especially, it's like, no. It's not so much depth. That's one thing, but it's like the quicker, like you said, that you were getting a free fall, and then you can kind of assess the situation as you're dropping. Even half the time you could shoot fish before you even get to the bottom, especially like grouper, I guess. But
yeah. I mean, that's the mindset that we want people to have line diving too. It's just like being relaxed. And like I tell people, it's like whenever you hit that point of tension or just like, oh, how much further do I have to go? Whenever you look towards the bottom, 9 times out of 10, the result is going to be like, oh, fuck. I have to go this much further. Like it's never good. and so just like.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
That is so true. I was just even replying to myself, fuck.
Yeah.
How deep am I? Fuck.
Yeah. And so it's just like, just tuck your chin, close your eyes, try to soften a little bit, see if there's any way that you can relax a little bit more. If you can't, boom, just go back up. Easy day. If you can relax into that like area of discomfort, then you've made it. Like that's the entire game. And I don't think that ever leaves. Like you never graduate beyond that point. You know, like there's always going to be the hamster wheel in the back of your mind that's screaming at you, and you're always going to have to be able to talk to it. You know? That's
another great point. Yeah. That voice is always in your head. Always. Yeah. And it's like, you're going to get there when you get there. Just calm down. Yeah. Calm down. It's so true. One time I was kicking straight down. I swam. I was like in the zen because I knew it was a deeper dive for me. And the bottom was like an 85 or whatever. And I just swam right in the fucking bottom, like just in the zone. I had missed the valley and like hit the little hill, just and I remember like I had a fucking a GoPro on my head, thank God, because that took the brunt of it, right into a coral reef.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm here, but it was so clear too. My buddies are watching me and they're like, okay, you can turn it. She just hit us. Yeah. Anyways, it was funny because the little fish came over. We're like, hey, what are you doing now? Because I just kicked up a bunch of coral.
Yeah, dusting. It was all technique,
It
right?
was all dusty. Yeah, it was great. So I just stayed down there.
Good strategy.
I mean, I wish I had a film watch. It's just funny, but anyways, yeah, I was in the zone, man. In the zone.
Yeah.
I might have done that myself.
Anyways, so if you guys, how does someone, if they want to get more involved and they're listening to this podcast and they're like, oh, those guys, like that seems like something I want to get into, what's the first step? How do you get involved?
I would say our Instagram is pretty active. Elizabeth and Nathan are the voices of that. So we put a lot of stuff out on that, and then I don't know, our newsletter, we're trying to work into more dive forecasts, as well as what our upcoming classes and trips and stuff like that are. So justgetwet.com or the Instagram at justgetwet_ are probably the two best.
Yeah, I'm on there every day. So like if you have a question or anything, just the Instagram, shoot us a message, we'll respond that day. And yeah, the website's pretty good. We stay pretty up to date on that. So there's like kind of like a rundown of everything kind of that we offer on there. And if you want to just like come hang out, like come on a Sunday, whether you want to jump in the water or not, we're there hanging out. And so it's a good way to kind of like meet people and just kind of, ask questions and find somebody, you kind of like share a common, some kind of common relationship with. So
that's in Jolla Shores, correct?
Yeah, pretty much every Sunday, 8 a.m. we'll be there. And then we kick out and then come back and grill out. The wintertime, it won't be as consistent, but rolling into the summer, it's much more consistent on pretty much every Sunday. So,
yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Love what you're doing. Check out your place in Mission Beach too. That was so cool to see. I'm like, a crazy son of a bitch, he did it. I was like, I remember like the Instagram page. Now you guys got like a shop and everything. And then
no, better be lucky than good. That's all I can say.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me and share this and everything you guys are doing for the San Diego freedive community, because that was one thing I thought was really lacking too, coming from a place where there was diving every week if you wanted it, like freediving, and then coming here, it's like, does anyone want to freedive? And it's tough, but awesome. I love what you guys are doing, and thanks again.
Yeah, thanks, no, we appreciate you and everything you do. Like I think a lot of people want to try to keep a lot of this stuff secret, and there's a lot of people putting in a lot of hard work and effort to feel like you got to earn it. But I think the less secrets, the better. And the more like knowledge that we can kind of pull together and share amongst each other will just all make us stronger divers and make this kind of grow into what I think we want it to be and what it should be. So thank you for bringing us on.
Oh yeah, anytime. Thank you guys. Maybe I'll see you Sunday or something. We'll see what's going on.
Yeah, get out there already.
All right, boys. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too.